Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Wellness Rock podcast. I'm so excited for you guys to be here with us this week. And I have one of my dear friends with us today. This is JoJo Dries. And not only is she an absolute powerhouse woman in the community, this is one of my dear friends to my heart. So I'm so grateful to have her here. She is the founder of On the Wings of Angels. I know I've talked about On the Wings of Angels a few times. It is a nonprofit organization, and she is an author and a speaker and an advocate for survivors. Her book is called The Lotus: How I Beat the Patriarchy, and she shares her journey of escaping a toxic and abusive home. She is a nationally sought after speaker, and JoJo empowers audiences with her story of resilience. She founded On the Wings of Angels to provide resources, community, and support those seeking freedom from abuse. JoJo is living her dream with her husband, Paul, who she reunited with after overcoming adversity. And together they have two amazing boys and a rescue dog. And I just absolutely if you don't know JoJo, she is just seriously one of the best people I've ever met. And her story had actually helped me. If you go back to the Wellness Rock podcast, in the very beginning of our episodes, we did a podcast episode together. And I should have looked back. I should have listened to that actually. But we kind of talked about what to look for in a situation if you think someone in your center of influence or someone you know may be experiencing a domestic situation. And in that time, I was experiencing a domestic situation, but I had not told anyone. I wasn't even fully aware at that moment. But I think that was when I first started becoming aware, because I remember being on that episode with you and just being like, one part of me was interviewing you as a podcast host, and the other part of me was interviewing you as if I was trying to get answers for myself. And
Wow. Wow.
right. And so to just know that you truly had such a big impact in me leaving that situation, along with many other people, but just being a part of On the Wings of Angels has been such an amazing thing. And we're going to dive into it and dive into who you are and just the amazing woman that you are. So I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit.
Steph, I'm really honored to be here, and I'm really honored with that beautiful introduction you just gave. Thank you so much for your kind words. We're honored to
Right.
have you on the board of On the Wings of Angels. You are a powerhouse woman. You have just done amazing with your life. And one of
Thank
my
you.
favorite things about you is that you continue to grow and evolve into the next chapter of who you're going to be. And I think so many people freeze or get stagnant, and you're a great example of what it looks like to, even if you're in a frozen moment, how to overcome that and then evolve into the next version of yourself. So
Mm.
you've also inspired me and taught me a lot that we can be more than somebody maybe put us in a square box and said, this is who you are. So
Aw.
thank you for doing that for me and so many others. And yeah, I'll never forget when you shared with me sort of what was going on in your life. And we talked about the podcast, and your friend Christina was so helpful in everything as you were emerging out of that. And your
Right.
story has inspired me and so many others as well. So I'm glad to be part of the journey, but I'm also glad you're part of mine. So thank you.
Yes, I feel like we have definitely been a part of each other's journey and just continue to be a part of it. And I know that we'll continue to stay a part of each other's journeys and just continue to grow together. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting. And what's really cool is where we were during that podcast and where we are today, like
So
two
different.
so different. That transitional period of time over the last few months has just been so powerful to witness
Yeah.
for both of us. And looking back at that episode to this episode, wow.
That was when I
Congratulations.
first started that podcast. So that was probably maybe July of 2023. So almost 2
Wow.
years ago.
Almost 2 years, and what's amazing is we were a baby organization then,
Right.
and now look at where we are, and then for your own journey, I mean, you were not married, there was just so much that was different, and
Right.
now look at you, and you're glowing, you really are, Steph.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So share your role as, a nonprofit organization leader, but also the most recent months you've really been transitioning. I know you've done speaking in the past, but you've really stepped into JoJo Dries, the speaker. So, how does that look like running an organization, speaking, and just everything that you do in
Yeah.
between?
So, on the Wings of Angels, as you said, we provide resources, community, and support to domestic violence survivors. And one of the things that we realized over the last year and a half has really been that domestic violence continues to be a topic that a lot of people like to shove under the rug. They don't
Right.
really want to talk about it. They don't feel comfortable talking about it or addressing it as a society. And sometimes with difficult conversations, we just need permission to be able to have the conversation and
Mhm.
open up the wound and start dialoguing about it. And so I realized that in order to do that and sort of give people the permission that they're wanting and desiring to have this conversation, I wanted to be a speaker and a presenter. And by presenting on this topic so boldly about my own journey and how we
Right.
help survivors currently in the role of On the Wings of Angels, it allows other people then to tell their story and to heal within their own journey. And
Right.
so that's been one of the most powerful transitions I've made actually in my career, is not just doing the work, but actually talking about it. And so we're going into corporations, into organizations, into small groups, large groups, colleges. Now we're talking, we had you come out to one of the college
Yes.
panels and say, to speak in front of college students, like that's so powerful.
So powerful because that's where it really begins.
Boom. That's what I was just gonna say. That's where we gotta get it at the root. Somebody asked me the other day to speak to a high school group, and, if we can get it in that early relationship, right? Or with
Mhm.
maybe domestic violence, survivors with their children, because
Right.
then they don't repeat the cycle, right? I think I've shared with you before that we had this survivor whose, like, 16-year-old son came to her and said, "Hey, I see some of the behaviors that dad was exhibiting in myself. Can On the Wings of Angels help me with a therapist?"
Wow.
And
I just
so
had chills.
right? Because that
Wow.
was very self-aware of him,
For
but he was
real.
also, yeah, but he was also seeing that his mom was getting help and the mental health therapy was helping her, so he's like,
Wow.
"Let me tap into that as well." And so to stop it within that generation, is incredible. And
Yeah.
then when we talk to corporations and their teams, HR directors all across the country have assumed a whole new role in the last few years. So since pandemic, HR directors have had to really, they're the right hand of the CEO or the director, and
Mhm.
they really do this path or this journey for the employees on the team. And domestic violence, 50% of workplace violence stems from a domestic violence situation at home.
Mm.
So when HR directors are considering who to bring in as a speaker, they want these topics addressed because they themselves have rules and regulations and laws around what they can talk about their employees. And at On
Right.
the Wings of Angels, we have this great PDF that I've been emailing to people of like things to say and things not to say, how to ask someone in your life if they're experiencing domestic violence, but really how to address it without being so direct,
Right.
or invasive about it. And
Mhm.
so HR directors are really getting on board as far as having this conversation within the workplace. So the speaking engagements have really increased, and I just love opening this dialogue with people all across the country. You know,
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and kinda like you were saying, like, if we could get to that root core, a lot of I know for me anyways, I attracted those types of men in my life because of what I went through in my childhood.
Yep.
So, if we can heal that part of people who are stepping into high school, college, like their early 20s, and heal that part and get to that part and get that in their heads, like, it'd be so different.
It'd be a game changer for our society because ultimately, just like many other things, we're not taught certain ways to interact in relationship. And
Mhm.
when you have an example maybe at home that isn't the most positive, and then you go into a school environment and then you really are just imitating what you've seen in your home, well, what if we could stop it at that root and say, no, this
Right.
is this is how a good or a healthy relationship looks like.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's definitely a big piece of this. And you did so great with those college students because you were able to say, look at, like, this is what I went through. This is part of it. And this is how we can avoid it.
Right.
And I think at On the Wings of Angels, that's kind of what we're trying to address as well with our survivors is how to not get back in that cycle, how to not repeat the same situation that you were just in, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's a big thing too is like healing in that part, experiencing the forgiveness so that you can truly move on and find something better. That's the part that like I think really is like my niche is like that forgiveness piece is like
Yes.
because that was I just remember sitting at across the table from Wesley after because we were just friends at first and we
Yeah.
had just went to church together and we went to go get breakfast and we were just talking about church and I was like I really need to forgive my ex and I need to forgive my dad.
Yep.
And those two side by side was it just like took so much weight off of me and it allowed me to receive Wesley into my life in a whole different way that I'd never even expected to. And I
Yeah.
mean, now we're married.
Yeah.
So
Well, I remember asking you straight up. I was like, "How did you forgive so quickly?" I mean, it took me years to get to the place that you got to in just a matter of months. And when I switched that, like when I did flip that switch of forgiveness, that's when my life started to accelerate and the right
Mhm.
people came in because you do draw in. So somebody had seen me and hadn't seen me in a few years and saw me last week. And she said to me, "JoJo, like your whole face looks different. You look calmer, like your energy is different.
For
You're like
real.
at peace within yourself." And it was interesting to me because it's been that shift of forgiveness and love and self-love and
Mhm.
self-forgiveness, which I know you really, really have a great session on and you speak to, because once we love ourselves and are able to invest in ourselves that way, we're not going to allow, that type of treatment, to
Right.
us. We're going to
Yeah.
care for that person. But yeah, the whole thing about forgiveness is going to be a game changer for people, and we do talk about that because
Right.
honestly, there's people that come to us and they say, "Listen, we are going to go to therapy. I'm going to go to therapy with, my ex, or I'm going to go to therapy with my abuser." And me, I strongly believe in therapy. But what I share with those women is you go to therapy, you heal, you figure out the things that caused this type of a situation to be in your life. You forgive yourself. And then if that person that's on their journey wants to join you, that's when they can join you in therapy.
That's good.
But to
Right.
just jump into therapy right away and think you're gonna fix that person without fixing yourself, that's we really don't encourage that at On the
Mm.
Wing because we want them to be on their own healing journey to then get into that next chapter of their life. And does the healed version of them want resonate with that person? No. So
Right.
then that's a big step for these women.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 2 holes make a hole. Like, 2 holes
Yes.
make a bigger hole. Like,
Yes, I love that. I
we
love that.
yeah, we can't be
Oh,
2 halves who come into a whole because we're not meant to complete each other.
nope.
We're meant to complement one another, and if we
Yep.
are not complete within ourselves, then we are just, in a sense, using that other person for the things that we don't have in our own lives.
And then we're sucking that energy. Then we become an energy sucker instead of energy giver. And we
Right,
don't wanna deplete other people's energy. We wanna give back.
right,
And that's so with Paul and I in our relationship, that's what we talk about all the time is we're 100, 100. Like, I'm gonna give 100% of my energy, and he's gonna give 100% of his energy. And if I can't come to the table with 100%, I'm very vulnerable with him and say, "Today, like, this is where I'm at," you
right,
know? But that's different than just expecting the other person to be fully completing all the time.
right.
And with
Yeah,
On the Wings of Angels, what we really like to do with these, survivors is so we take them through a process, right? So you're coming out of domestic violence. You are in fight or flight mode. You don't know where your next paycheck's coming from. You don't know how you're going to put food on the table for yourself, or if you have children, for your children. You don't know how you're going to be have transportation or safe housing. And so what we do is we like to take them through this list of questions about how they're worthy to have so many things in life. They're worthy to have safe housing, to have transportation, to have a
That's
job.
amazing.
Yeah, to have income. And then once we show them that they are worthy, we start this priority list for them. So the team that is the intake team, we really ask them a series of questions, to see where they're at. Because when you're in fight or flight mode, you cannot prioritize your list. You're just thinking about this thing right here that's in front of you and getting to
Right.
safety, right? It's survival mode.
Yeah.
And so we try to be that calm in the storm and say, okay, let's make your priority list and then let's knock it down one by one.
That's good.
And there's a lot of wonderful nonprofits in the domestic violence space, or sexual abuse space, or whatever it might be within this umbrella. And so if we can't meet those needs, we now have a list of resources in the community, and we're a conduit to get this person from this space to that space. And the other thing is we stay in our wheelhouse.
Mhm.
So if you're a survivor that's sort of in the cycle, which many of us were and are, I mean, it took me till I was 29 to actually leave the situation I was in.
Right.
And I could have done it at 18, right? Because for me, it was my dad. And so, at 18, I could have just said, I'm out of here and gotten a place.
Right.
But we all reach our rock bottom. And if you're not there, then we're not the organization for you.
Right.
We've met with many other organizations that refer us survivors, and we always tell them our wheelhouse is the survivor that is done, has hit the rock bottom, and is not going back.
Yeah.
If you are in that cycle, there's other nonprofits that we can refer you to that will help you heal out of that into the next
Right.
chapter.
Yeah. And that's part of it. I mean, there's no judgment against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no judgment, and there's no like negativity associated with it because we've
Right.
all been there. And I
Yeah.
think
It took
survive
me
right.
multiple times, like, packing a
Yes.
bag and going to a friend's house until I actually packed my bag for good and took my dog with me, so I
Yep.
was not coming back.
Yep. And you called me that night, didn't you?
Yeah, yes,
We talked that night. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and, so, yeah, it takes time, honestly, it's not just a flip of the switch because you're so mentally far, but
Yeah.
while we're on that, for those who do not know you and may not have heard your story before, just share a little bit of your story.
Sure. So the first time I recollect, my dad sexually abusing me was at age 9. He had done a lot of physical abuse, a lot of beatings and hair pulling and pushing around and, shaking you by the shoulders and all of that to my mom and myself. Um, my older brother, so in our culture, because I'm Arabic, in our culture, the oldest son is very highly revered. So I don't believe he got as much of the abuse as I did. Myself and my younger siblings definitely got a lot of the abuse. The boys got less of it, I think, again, because in our culture, the male is very highly revered, no matter their age. And so I knew that physical abuse was wrong. I didn't know how I was going to get out, but one day I knew I would get out, even at that young age. Throughout my teens and 20s, I was still being abused physically. I don't remember the sexual abuse going through my 20s, but it definitely was in my teens and late teens. And then at the same time, which our story, I met Paul. I met my husband now at 9 years old. And the reason I talk about him is he's an integral part of the story because he showed me, and I would always seek out people that would show me that the life I was living wasn't the end all be all. That
Right.
although, I was sheltered and we were homeschooled, home churched, home business, so it was all within the home, and we didn't have a lot of outside of exposure to the world around us, which is hard for people to wrap their heads around, but it was super like a cult. I just could not get out of that environment.
Mm.
And so, Paul, when I met him when we were at church camp, he showed me that there was a male figure. He was 13 years old that looked different than my brothers and my dad. And so his part of the story is very integral because it's a light that we all are looking for to say there's something different. And
Mm.
I know you talk about Christ and so forth, and Paul is a believer. We're definitely people of faith, and that was what I saw in him. You know, he was a Christ follower then and now.
Yeah.
So through our teens, I crushed on him. I loved him. He was the guy I was going to marry. In my late teens and his early 20s, he asked my dad to date me. And my dad said, no, that's never going to happen. He said at the time it was because Paul was not Arabic, but now looking back on it, I know it's because Paul could not be controlled by my dad. And everything
Yeah.
had to be under my dad's control. He's your typical narcissistic abuser. And so as the years went on, we went from rags to riches. We didn't have two pennies to rub together when I was growing up. But as my dad saw how smart we all were, he put us all to work. So we were homeschooled. We started businesses. All these businesses compounded on each other, and we started making a lot of money. And so in my early 20s, we began to travel the world. We were in the mortgage and real estate space, traveling the world. We built $1.5 million home out in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we were just, I was feeling myself. So I called Paul in my mid 20s and I said, I'm independent now. I'm a world traveler and it's time for us to date. So we dated online because we were traveling a lot. And so we did a lot of Facebook and emails, which we have a lot of those saved still.
Aw.
They're very, very precious interactions and a lot of phone conversations. And then in my mid 20s, so the abuse was going on all this time. So parallel to me, doing all this other stuff, I would get locked in my bedroom. We would be in a hotel. I'd get locked out of the hotel room. I was told I'd had to sleep in the hotel lobby because maybe I said something publicly that they didn't like. I couldn't eat or drink if we were home and I did something wrong. Now, mind you, again, hard to conceptualize, but I'm in my 20s at this point, still
Right.
getting, locked in my bedroom. You can't eat or drink until you agree with your dad. Um, they really,
Jeez.
yeah, they really twisted the Bible and twisted Christianity. So they did exorcisms on me because they told me I was demon possessed because I disagreed with my dad. Um,
Jeez.
so all this parallel to me always seeing hope in Paul. And with you being a female podcaster and a female leader and a female owner of a cafe and all of that, and on our board of directors and all the leadership positions you have, you were the type of person that I would always gravitate towards when I
Mm.
was growing up and in my teens and 20s. I would always look for women that were successful and powerful, like that were making a difference in this world.
Mm.
Sadly, my mom could not be that example for me, and the people in our community could not. And so, between Paul and these women, that was my inspiration to say, there's life outside of this, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that Reba McEntire song, but she's like, is there life out there? And that
Yeah.
was my theme song for many years.
Aw.
Like, I would sing
Wow.
that, I would run on the treadmill to it.
Aw.
Because I wanted to love my family and be loyal to the siblings and my mom,
Right.
but needed to find my own way. And
Yeah.
so in my mid 20s, when we did that, we went to my dad and he said, him or us, if you choose him, you'll never talk to your mom or your siblings ever again. And if you choose us, you got to get rid of Paul because you're in love with him and we don't want him just hanging out. And so at the time, we had the worst heartbreak you can imagine. I said goodbye to Paul. I said, I can never see you again. Don't ever call me. Don't text me. And he was begging me to leave because he knew that I was being controlled and he knew there was something wrong with the situation.
Right.
So I said goodbye to him, thought I'd never see him again, but that was my catalyst to get out of Dodge. And so 3.5 years later, my dad touched me for the last time. In the moment, he grabbed my hair, threw me to the floor, dragged me across his bedroom, like carried me, basically threw me down our stairs in our beautiful home. While my younger brother, sat in the hallway just kind of watching. My mom was in the corner of the room with tears just flying down her face, doing nothing because she never did anything. She's your textbook victim. And
Mm.
and I left. I left that day and never looked back. So I started sleeping on friends' couches. One of our friends, our family friends, took me in, and I slept on his in their guest bedroom. And then I went on Match.com a few months later, and Match.com, 30 days after I was on there, matched me with Paul as the match of the day. So it's not just a love story. It's this hope for our future that God has for us, that ultimately there's a plan for your life. And in that moment when Paul landed on my match, I, I knew it was God. I literally fell on my face, on my knees in the room, and I said, "This is you." I did not respond to him, but he messaged me. I did not message him, but he messaged me, and the rest is history. We eloped on Valentine's Day. We have 2 kids and a dog and all of that later, a beautiful home, my dream life, and now I'm serving
Yeah.
as the director of a nonprofit, because now I'm able to fulfill the dream of that I had as a little girl to help other little girls and women get out of those types of situations.
It's so good. I feel like I learn something new about your story every time I hear it.
Well, it's also and to your point of sharing the stories and forgiveness,
Mhm.
girl, the more I've forgiven, the more I'm able to tell more and more parts of the story that maybe I wasn't publicly sharing
Right.
because my heart is, like, clean. Like, I'm gonna cry now. I'm not, like, bitter. Like, I hated them for so long. Like,
No.
it just and I think that's why it shocked me, like, when you were like, you so quickly, like, forgave, and I'm sure you have days where it's difficult, but there's another survivor I talk to all the time, and Natalie from Austin Benefits, and I'm always like, "God, just the way she speaks about him, like, it's just so beautiful to me," and
Wow.
that just goes to show you that you always have something to learn. So, I've been
Mhm.
running this nonprofit. I wrote a book 7 years ago, but the more that you heal, the more that you forgive, the more that you give yourself love and forgiveness for dealing with that for so long, the more you can show the world that a better life is possible.
Right. Yes. Oh, yes. For real. Oh my goodness. Yes, that's so good. And I love when you share your story because it just shows truly one how divine God is like bringing you and Paul back together so many times
Yeah,
and just getting you out of that situation. Like
yeah,
finally getting the courage to step out of that situation after
yep,
being in it for so long. That's so hard, and it's so hard to heal from that, but you've done it and you're doing it and you are still healing every day. Like
yeah,
healing is not a linear thing. Like it's
correct.
not just straight and narrow like, "Oh yeah, I'm healed." Like no, this is something we have to work towards every single day, but you do it and I'm so proud of you.
Correct, and that's why thank you, and same, and that's why, so 2.5 years ago, so I've been helping, survivors ever since I left. So whenever I've had a paycheck, so similar to a tithe, I've taken a portion of my paycheck and helped some survivors somehow, whether it's buying gas or groceries or, when I was making a lot of money, like paying a bill or something like that. And so about 2.5 years ago, I had a mentor say, "JoJo, you've been doing this for so long. You talk about your story so often. You should just start a nonprofit and no one can say no to you. So just go and ask people to help survivors. And I guarantee you, you'll get the buy-in of the community." And so in the whole scheme of things, like this is where On the Wings of Angels started 2.5 years ago. We went and we got the 501c3 status through the IRS. We launched a website during Women's Empowerment Month in March of 2023. In August of 24, we had a big TV interview with Taryn Asher from Fox 2, where she came out and spent a half a day with us. And then that really launched, that's when our first survivor came to us. And I do have a way of asking people to help, and they really step up to the plate. And kudos to our community. Kudos to people like you who stepped up to the plate to serve. In the nonprofit world, there's what we call time, talent, and treasure. We can all give of our time, we can give of our talents, or we can give of our treasure, our finances.
Mhm.
And so people who don't think, well, I can't, who think, well, I can't help, I got nothing to give. Well, maybe you can give your time. Maybe there's a gift that you have that, a salon owner recently, as you saw, donated their time to and their talents to give survivors the first chance at walking into a salon, getting their hair, their nails, their makeup done.
Yeah.
You at the Wellness Rock Cafe, you all are donating a portion of your proceeds from one of your drinks in the month of March during Women's Empowerment Month to On the Wings of Angels. So
Yeah.
it's like we can all do something. And so kudos to the community. Everyone stepped up to the plate. And 2.5 years later, here we are. We served over 101 women last year. We served dozens of children. We've given them housing, attorney help, mental health help. We donated 2 cars last year to 2
Yes.
deserving women. But one of the biggest things that people need to hear is that it's not always the thing. Like you may have a survivor who's good. She's got a house, she's got, her bills paid, she's got all this stuff going good for her. But what she might need is just a support community. And I think
Mhm.
that's what you do really well at both the Wellness Rock Cafe, with this podcast, with your socials, is you provide a community. And that's what we're seeing on the board and in our service to the community is survivors need the support to say they're not alone.
Right.
Because otherwise they're going to go right back or they're going to be in depression or darkness because you
Yeah.
need to know you're not alone on this path.
Right.
I mean, you had people that stepped up when you had to get out.
100%. If it wasn't for my community, I would have went back 100%. Like if it wasn't for the people that I had already surrounded myself with and started talking to about it, like I could have easily went back.
Yeah. It's so easy because it's a draw and it's your comfort zone. So
Mhm.
recreating and rewiring our brains into a different comfort zone,
Yeah.
um, is powerful and is important.
Yeah, 100%. So, how many people has On the Wings of Angels, helped? I know this answer,
Yeah.
but I want you to say
Yeah.
it.
All right. So last year we served over 101 women. And we
Yes.
served dozens of children.
Yes.
So we did all kinds of things. We did a clothing drive. So we gave a lot of clothes away to these women. The community stepped up and did that. We
Yes.
did 2 vehicles we've donated. What we do is also with the mental health therapy. So we have therapists that we refer to our survivors because
Mhm.
ultimately, like I said, you have to rewire your thinking so
Yeah.
that this doesn't happen to you again. And
Right.
so we have therapists on deck that we've vetted that we refer out. Attorney help. So we had one attorney that donated, and I can't say their name, but they donated because we don't want people just knowing that, but um,
Right.
over $100,000 worth of their team's efforts, and they won a lawsuit for one of our survivors.
Wow.
And the survivor said, no one in my whole life has ever gone to battle for me in this way.
Wow.
And so stepping up to the plate with attorney help, mental health, safe housing. I wrote a couple of checks this week to landlords for the first month deposit on a apartment and the security deposit. So one of the things that we do at On the Wings of Angels is we empower the women to make their own decisions and their life of freedom. Because
Mhm.
ultimately, if you don't think you can do it, then you're going to go right back to your abuser because maybe he provided the finances, maybe he took care of your bills,
Right.
maybe he provided you housing. And so what we do is we say, okay, look it, you got a job, you got all this, you're fine, but you need an apartment. We're not going to go find the apartment for you. We're not going to go put the applications in. We're not going to interview for you.
Right.
You go do all of that, figure out where you want to live. So we give them autonomy because as a survivor, there's two major things that we experience. Lack of autonomy. We can't make our own decisions.
Mhm.
And unworthiness. We don't believe we're worthy or capable of doing these things because they
Right.
make you feel like terrible about yourself and they
Yeah.
convince you that you are incapable of doing these things.
Mhm.
So we switch that dialogue, we switch that paradigm, and we say, no, you are capable, you are worthy, go do this. And
Yeah.
so then we'll look at the contracts. So we look at these landlord contracts or whatever, make sure it's legit, and then we pay the bill. We also don't pay the survivor, we pay the person, the vendor. So if we're paying a light bill, we pay the light company. the utility company. If we're paying the landlord, we pay the landlord. We don't ever pay the survivor the cash. There have been times that we've had to send like Apple Pay or things like that because they're in an emergent situation, but then
Right.
they send us the receipt from the grocery store or something like that, or the gas bill, or the
Yeah.
gas receipt. So part of what we're doing is empowering survivors. It's not just being that immediate, no red tape nonprofit. It's about empowering them as well.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Yeah. I mean, everybody needs something different, I feel like.
Yes.
And it's so amazing to have so many different resources and to just know how many people have stepped up and given their like you said, time, treasure, and talent, like given their time, given their treasure, given their talent to help this organization and to help the people going through this situation. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
truly amazing.
Yeah. And ultimately, when I give my presentations, that's what I try to share with people is there's a lot of great nonprofits. So sort of find your niche, find what speaks to you within the
Mhm.
nonprofit community and then go for it.
Mhm.
That's we can all do our part to make this
Right.
world a better place. And
Yeah.
that's what I want to see more of in the community is don't be frozen that just because I don't have the money or I don't have that talent or whatever. No, there's something you can give and contribute,
Yeah.
you know.
I always like to share too, because I mean, I'm a small business
Yeah.
and we may not have thousands and thousands of dollars to donate, but we do what we can. Like
Yeah.
JoJo mentioned, we have the On the Wings of Angels Survivor Tea that we have had all month of March. So we're giving a percentage of the proceeds back to On the Wings of Angels. We've donated baskets. I've donated my time. Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be this big, and I feel like a lot of nonprofits make it look like that. You
Yeah.
have to donate this, like, really big check
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
like, be somebody, but you don't. Like,
No.
you just come with what you are, and just like Jesus meets us where we are, we can be met where
Amen.
we are and
Well,
help
and you
how
have
we can.
speaking of Jesus, I mean, you have like this servant heart. And even when we have our events, for example, and you're always there and you're always serving in that capacity and and the people that are serving with you are just your energy that you bring to the table.
Mm,
Like that's the other piece of this is ultimately that's the energy and the spirit that we want more of within our nonprofits
yeah,
is, we're tired. Like, I'm going to just say it straight up. Like, we serve people all the time, all day.
right. Yeah,
And so to have the community just come alongside of you and say, all right, I got this. I got you. Like
yeah,
we need more of that in the nonprofit community. And I'm not shy to say that anymore because this is not easy work. Serving the survivor community is worthy and rewarding work, but it's not easy. And especially for
right,
somebody like me who came from domestic violence,
right,
it's re-triggering, right? Like it re-triggers me on many days and so it's wonderful when the community steps up and says, "Okay, we got your back. How can we help?"
right. Yeah, that's good, even when it involves do you remember when I tripped up the
Yes.
stage at the movies?
Yes.
I literally my toe was bleeding, like
Oh my god. You're like, even when it involves bodily injury, I got you, JoJo. I got you.
I was running around for that microphone. I
You
was
needed that
so
mic.
embarrassed.
You were the sweetest. You were the sweetest. And you just kept going. Like and that's the thing about you with everything that I've seen in your life is you never like stop, which is what I was saying in the beginning. Like you just keep evolving to the next but even when you tripped, yes, you kept going.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, stop sacrificed her toe. What's everyone else gonna sacrifice?
Right. That's hilarious. So what's your big vision for On the Wings of Angels? I mean, On the Wings of Angels is not even 3 years old yet. We're about to be 3 years old, but in such a little time, we've done so much. So what is the big vision for On the Wings of Angels?
Oh gosh, I love that question because I'm definitely a big picture, big vision, big mission person,
Yes.
mission minded here. So we want to double the survivors that we helped last year, that we served last year. So we would love for the community to come alongside us to support us as we double that effort. Um, the bigger vision, so if you look at 3 to 5 years from now, is I see a community civic center, a safe house, um, an area for survivors to have support groups and to have their own community, to have jobs, to get them jobs within that community. So the bigger vision is to have the civic center, a safe house, to have a real community for these survivors where they know that this is a safe space for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I love that. So if people want to get involved, and I know we just talked about giving time, talent, and treasure, but what are specific ways people can get involved if they're looking to get involved?
Wonderful. So we have a website, www.onthewings.org. If
Yes,
you
I'll
go to
put that
that,
in the show notes too.
okay, awesome. So if you
Yeah,
go to our website, you'll be able to fill out a form that says, I want to volunteer. And then we go through a series of questions on that form, on that survey, and then we'll contact you and we'll figure out the best ways to work together. Um,
awesome.
our immediate needs right now are sometimes we need volunteers to move things. So if we get furniture or something like that donated, we'd love if able-bodied people that wanted to help us move signed up to volunteer. We have our gala coming up in April, so anyone who wants to attend, mo most of those, if not all of those dollars will go directly to domestic violence survivors.
Yes.
There's other events that we have throughout the year. Come volunteer, help, donate. Donate to the silent auction for the On the Wings of Angels gala. That would always be helpful.
Yeah.
Gift baskets or whatnot. So those are some immediate things for folks to think on.
Awesome. I love that. And also, if you're in the Garden City area or you just want to support On the Wings of Angels, you can come stop by the cafe and get yourself a survivor tea. It's strawberry, pina colada, and wild berry. So it's really good.
Oh.
And so yeah, JoJo, I've loved having you on here. I've loved hearing your story again and again and just learning more than I've ever listening to your story today. I've learned so much more about your story, and just every time I hear it, I learn more. So I'm so grateful that you joined us today and kind of shared your story and shared what the amazing things that On the Wings of Angels is doing.
And I'm honored that you asked me. Ask me again. I'm honored to be in the space that we are today together in our friendship, with you being on the board as a board member. And I'm really proud of what you've done with your life. Like
Thank
from the
you.
minute I met you, you've just been a go getter, a powerhouse woman, and someone that other people can look up to and seriously be motivated by and inspired by. So I'm honored to be in your circle, my friend.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you.
So we always close out with a Bible verse, and you chose a few, and I loved reading through them. I feel like they all embodied some part of On the Wings of Angels. So I'm going to list them, but I'm going to read one. So if you want to look these up for yourself, if you're listening to this, you can look up Genesis 50:20, Isaiah 61:3, Psalms 147:3, and 2 Corinthians 4:8 through 9. But the one that I really wanted to hit on today, because I feel like it embodies so much of your story, is Genesis 50:20. And it says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." And if that is not your story, I don't know what is. Like, your dad intended that to be harm for you, and God intended all of it. He knew that you would step out. He knew that you would finally get the strength to step out and do the amazing things that you're doing. That's now being done, and you're saving so many lives, JoJo. Got me
I
over here
cried when
crying.
I cried when I sent it, and I'm crying again because that's it. That's what they intended for evil. God has turned around and saving so
Turn
many
it for
lives,
good.
and ultimately that's the purpose. We all have a destiny. We all have a mission. We all have a purpose in this life, and it's an honor and a privilege to walk in mine. So, and
Yeah.
this podcast is part of it because we're getting the message out. So thank you for allowing me the space to continue walking in my purpose.
Yes, absolutely. Always. I'll always support you.
Same.
Yes. So if you want to follow us on social media, you can find me. You know where to find me. I'll put everything in the show notes. You can find JoJo at On the Wings of Angels Nonprofit on Instagram. And you can also, if you want to donate, you want to get a ticket to the gala, I will put all these individual links in the show notes as well. So I'll put like a donate link, I'll put a ticket to the gala link, I'll put a volunteer link. So whatever you may be listening to and you want to participate in any way, shape, or form, I will have that for you if you're listening. And yes, if you like this episode, share it. Share this with someone you may think may be experiencing a situation for themselves. Like, this is what we're here for. We're here to share our stories so that other people don't have to experience these stories. We're
Mhm.
here to help people now so that they don't have to go through it themselves,
Mhm.
and just to continue to inspire people. So, and also, don't forget to take care of yourself, because when you're not your best self, you can't help others become their best selves as well. So, thank you again, JoJo. I love
Thank
you
you.
and
I
I'm
love
grateful.
you. I'm grateful for this. Thank you. I love you.
Yes.